Hey, you like cars? Back again, CarQuicks podcast. How y'all doing? I'm feeling good. You can see the energy's up. Have the energy up because we got a good episode coming along, and I'm just good to be here. But before we begin anything, you know what time it is. Let me do my thing. Episode 49. We're getting close to 50. CarQuicks season 2. Yes. So, again, how are y'all? I do my little intro. Feel how y'all are feeling out there. I'm feeling good, feeling great, feeling wonderful. Hope y'all are doing well. Kids, the family, the wife, everybody, the loved ones, significant other. But let's drive in, okay? Because we got things to cover. There's a couple things that happened, of course, across a number of weeks, right? Number of days. Some of the stuff is older. I'm just bringing it up now because I wanted to kind of pace myself with what I was doing and what I was talking about. But we're going to start off with something that's actually hilarious and sad, if you can imagine, right? It's both funny and it's sad. So I didn't dive too deep into this subject because the subject matter in the U.S. it's also a thing, right? But in Toronto, Canada, they have such an epidemic of car thefts that the police are telling people to essentially just hand over the keys. Like, don't even put up a fight. Don't even call us. 911, no. We're not answering. If it's a car theft, they're like, hand the keys over. They're like, keep the keys in view or in the front of your house or somewhere visible that they can get to. Essentially, leave your car unlocked. They're saying they can't help you, which is nuts because if you think about the taxes you're paying for public safety and public servitude and the job that they have in order to maintain safety in your community, to hear the police tell you essentially like, we got nothing for you. If they come, yo, I'm gonna need the keys. They're like, just give it to them. Now, preservation of life over material thing is very important. Like if somebody came to me and was like, give me the GR Corolla, I'm giving them the keys. Like I'm not getting shot or killed over a Toyota. Like, no, that's a bad way to go out. My tombstone's gonna say, it was a good man, stood tall, stood strong. They want to give the keys to the Corolla. And here we are. I mean, that's not the story I'm trying to have. But in Toronto, they have such a big issue that's what's going on. I didn't go further into it, but when I read that article, I was like, that's crazy for anybody that lives in that city of where that police station was, the police chief was talking about, and that's what you're left with. I mean, it's basically survival of the fittest. It's vigilante time, okay? Call Batman or become Batman, okay? You got to do something. If we're just knocking on doors and keys are being handed off because you know if you dial the police, they're just going to say, oh, they're still in the car? Oh, what'd you say again? Oh, okay, hold on. Let me get my supervisor. Supervisor? Yeah, just give him the car. It's like wild. Now, getting back into the car news, Porsche announced the Taycan Turbo GT. Now, I didn't realize that there was even a market that they were trying to see existed for a Taycan Turbo GT. There's a Taycan Turbo, right? That's the highest performance Taycan that you can get, up to about like 900 horsepower, extremely fast. This is even faster. This has 1,019 horsepower up to 1,092 in what they call attack mode. So attack mode is like a button you press and it unleashes the extra like 70 some odd horsepower for 10 seconds, similar to what they use in their Formula E cars and similar to like a DRS button in a Formula 1 car. Like it's basically a button press and you blast off. If you're paying attention to EVs, right, you notice that we're getting a lot of these cool little press a button, get 40 extra horsepower, like the Dodge Charger. Press a button and you get this. They call it power boost. They call it attack mode. I'm just waiting for when somebody's just going to get together with NOS, nitrous oxide, Nitrous Express, or one of them, and just brand the button on the steering wheel. Let's just have a good time. Let's just make the Mustang EV whenever it inevitably shows up, or if it does, or if it does not. Just put the nice branded button on the steering wheel and let's have a good time. Because that's what these are kind of doing. It's giving you that extra power boost. So Porsche, the reason why they're making the Taycan GT, or at least that's what they're saying, is to weigh the options of whether people that buy Taycans, these high-end buyers, are willing to pay for GT3 RS, GT2 RS power in an EV. Now, I'll be honest, I don't even think there's really that much of a market, but I guess if you're trying to go up against the likes of Rimac or really high power performance EV supercars and hypercars, and maybe there is a very small niche market. This costs $231,995, right? 232 grand plus tax, probably somewhere around 240, 250. I'm sure there's a markup somewhere in this category. And it ran the Nürburgring in 7 minutes, 7 seconds, 0.55. Now, I don't know how many people are buying Taycans and they're like, you got to show me the Nürburgring time. If I'm not going to buy it, Jock, I'm not going to buy it, John. If you don't show me what this ran on the Nürburgring, I can't do it. I just can't. It's got to be under 7 seconds. It's got to be under 7 minutes and 10 seconds. If it's not, I mean, the sale's done. I mean, Nürburgring lap times to me have always been something where it's cool to see. I do like watching the videos and seeing them ride on the track as fast as they can. But consumer cars and then putting that as a headline is the reason why you're buying it. Like, look what this did on the Nürburgring that you're probably never going to get on. And you don't have the skill set to even drive your car this hard, this fast, and this risky to get that number. But here it is anyways, in case you want to brag to the friends in the Cars and Coffee parking lot. But it runs a 7 second. It runs a 7 minute Nürburgring lap time. It's a very hardcore EV. Hardcore to the point where the Weissach package is available on this. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what is a Weissach package on a Taycan Turbo GT consist of? Well, here's for one. If you know on the Taycan, there's 2 charging ports on the rear of the car, where the one on the driver's side is taken away, and the one on the passenger side now is there, but it has a manual open operated door. Like before, you can press a button inside when you're charging it, open a little door on the side. Now you got to get outside like the rest of us peasants and press the door to open it like we're getting gas, and you got to charge it. Okay, so welcome to our world. On top of that, it has no rear seat. They took away the rear seat in the 4-door Taycan EV. Now, they don't got a picture of it, or I would have thrown it up on the screen already. But just imagine the rear seat deleting like a GT3 RS or a GT2 RS. Now, imagine all the seats in the rear of a 4-door sedan. I'll say this. Cars that have like the rear seat unusable because it has a roll cage or a seat delete, it's kind of gangster. I'm not gonna lie. When I've seen it at auto shows when people modify cars, I'm like, that's a gangster move for the audacity to do this. So I can get with it. I mean, it's just crazy. Though at $232,000, I don't think I'd be looking behind me in my rear seat like, oh, I'm sorry guys, I know I got 4 doors, but psych. You know, you can't sit back there. You can hold on if you get back there, but there's nothing for you to really sit on. On top of the fact that you have no rear seat, you also get a fixed wing on the back, and you see it in the pictures. It adds 310 pounds of downforce on its own. But the Taycan GT in general has front splitters, diffusers, side skirts. You can see the image of this compared to a standard Taycan, even the turbo one, and you can see the difference. There's a lot of extra aero that they put on this car in order to give it the GT-esque side of it. Now, for people that got money that are buying GT3 RSs right now and GT2s, I can see that small niche being like, well, I want to have an EV. I'm going to buy a Porsche one anyway, so let me just go get the one that has the 310 downforce wing, the Weissach package, the rear seat delete. I'm just going to do the same craziness I was doing on my regular GT2 or GT3 in the sedan. So there's some market there. I do think that the rear seats being removed is hilarious, but you do save 157 pounds, which you're probably going to add right back into the car when you step inside of it, because That's just what it is. It still weighs 4,900 pounds. I don't know what the weight is on the YSAC package one. If they're dropping that much weight, I'm thinking 4,900 is the standard turbo GT. YSAC package 4,780 or something of that nature. It's going to drop it a certain amount. It's not the lightest thing in the world, but when you got 1,000+ horsepower, this thing is still doing 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It still has a top speed that I think is probably near the 200 miles an hour or a little bit under it. So it's still a very fast extreme car. The question is, does the market actually want extreme power performance sedan EVs? Porsche is probably the best company to figure out if there's a market for this. The worst case scenario, they make this for a couple years and they become like the sought after rare specimen of a Taycan. But seeing it at the shows would be probably cool. I want to see this rear seat delete because I want to see if the rear door handles still work. Because if you could open the rear doors and just stare at seat deletes, that's hilarious. But if they kind of just took them away, that would be kind of gangster because it'd be like, listen, you can put a lot of tires back here. You can do your Costco runs. You got a whole flat rear parcel shelf. It can be actually even more efficient than the regular Taycan because nobody's sitting behind you. Now I can put all the groceries in boxes back there. Other cars that are coming that I was reading about a while ago, probably, let's say, I don't know how many podcasts ago I was talking about Mercedes-Benz and AMG, right? Because AMG has been they have been slowly getting away from their V8, right? When the hybrid 4-cylinder one came out, there has been a very vocal set of people who are buying AMGs that do not like the fact that they are paying the same amount of money for lack of the experience, right? In that podcast I talked about, I said AMG owners weren't buying these cars for efficiency. They're buying them for the experience. V8, twin turbo, sounds, burbles, torque. So even though the numbers are the same, like the C63 AMG has 671 horsepower. That's more than the outgoing one. It's more than any of the years before it. But you will see people in love with the old naturally aspirated V8 C63, the twin turbo one, even if it's slower because of sound feeling. So now we got this 4-cylinder on a hybrid powertrain making all the power in the world, but it sounds like a lawnmower, and you're still paying $80,000. People just aren't feeling that combination of things. It's like saying we have this super high-end restaurant. We are making Wagyu burgers, but there's no chef. We put them in a microwave, but they taste pretty much the same if you saw the chef back there putting it on the plate, sauteing it with butter. But we figured out how to do it in a microwave as robots. I promise you're not going to want to pay the same amount of money. You're not. You're going to be like, yo, this is a microwave burger. I don't care no more. I want to see Gordon Ramsay back there doing something, okay? Not me just looking at a microwave with some robots. So who knows how that's going to go. But what I do know is that the next AMG they have coming out is being touted as a sweet spot, right? The E53. The E53 retains the inline-6 turbo motor that it had previously. This time, though, it has jumped substantially in power. We went from 429 horsepower all the way to 604, which is crazy. That jump is probably what they're going to get people to agree to not having a V8, even though the E53 always had the inline-6. So the difference here is that you're gaining much more horsepower. It always had an inline-6. The E63 is where they're going to have to convince those buyers who are getting twin turbo V8s that the inline-6 in the hybrid system is equally as good, but we already know how that's probably going to go. But anyways, 604 horsepower. Normally it's 577, but there's this race start option that adds an extra 30, 40 horsepower that gets up to 604, 553 foot-pounds of torque, 0 to 60, 3.7, 3.9 if you're not using race start, all-wheel drive. So it's fast, right? You don't lose performance based on numbers. What you gain is like the smaller engine, the power, the performance, similar to what Dodge did on the Charger, right? Dodge came out, said no V8, no Hemi V8, no supercharged V8. We have inline six twin turbos. This is going to be a common thread up until they either make a new V8 that's as efficient. I don't foresee that not happening, because technology and engineering and advancement may take away something in the beginning, and then they come back and say, hey, we figured out how to make the V8 as efficient as any of the other engines we're doing now, so we're bringing it back. But the same way Mercedes is doing with the V8 in their cars is happening across the board. Smaller engines, hybrid powertrains, turbo motors is compensating for the lack of displacement in cylinders, right? So we have this E53, electric motor assisted. It has a 28.6 kilowatt battery inside of it. Don't know how many miles it can do on battery alone, which I think is the cool part of these hybrid systems. Yes, you may not have the V8, but let's take that away for a second, right? Because what if you weren't actually even going to buy the V8 in anyways? You're always going to get an E53. And you're going to get an inline six with a turbo on it. The Supras have it, BMWs have it. There's nothing wrong. They sound amazing. They have great power. If they're already turbo, there's a world of tuning and aftermarket that can unlock even more. But I like when they add the hybrid to it, similar to the holy trinity of hypercars. Remember the LaFerrari, the 918, the P1? Those were hybrid setups. They had electric motors on the gas engine. It was mainly for the performance jump. So if I can cruise to the store for 10 miles on EV and I don't want to fly over there and waste any gas and come back home and have to put the car to charge and not waste any gas, that's cool to me. I like that option. You also get gigantic 15.4-inch calipers, brakes, 6-piston brakes. If you get the AMG Dynamic Plus package, includes active motor mounts, which sounds like a warranty disaster when it's over, waiting to happen. Locking rear diff, that's important, especially at this power range. You want a locking rear diff. You don't want to just be spinning one wheel. I mean, nonsense. Even though I'm sure they got some electronic way of braking one wheel, but no, just get the locking rear diff. You're paying for 604 horses, okay? Let's do it the right way. You get locking rear diff. Interior looks good, as all the Mercedes have been looking. Though I'm going to say this. A while back, I was like, these interiors are looking really good. But now as time has gone on, I realize there is a problem. We're putting too many screens on the dashboard. Like I've said in my last podcast, these screens and these dashboards are looking like the Best Buy back wall where all the TVs are at. That is your screen. How is it going to look over time? I would argue that we're just going to look at this and bring back buttons. There is articles out talking about the EU forcing companies to bring back buttons. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate podcast episode, because I mentioned it before about the distraction of these screens. And if you look at the way this interior looks on this E53, there's no way at night that you couldn't possibly be distracted. Besides the fact that maybe there's an increased amount of blue light damage to your retinas and you're looking at these bright screens, even if you try to put them in dark mode, it's a lot going on. Overall, though, the performance, the package, it looks good. What's the price of this? I mean, it's the E53. 80,000 is probably where it starts. 72,000 gets up to 90, similar to the, BMW M3. It's going to be expensive. The E63 is supposed to get the same version of this powertrain, but even more power, which would be either 700 or 800. It's a $100,000 car. 90, 95 grand, 100,000. They're playing with the big boys, okay? That's just the price of it. Another car that is coming to an end is the R35. There's been articles in the Japanese car magazine saying that the R35 is going to come to a close in the 2025 model year. I don't know how accurate this is. Many of the articles are saying they haven't got confirmation from Nissan, but Nissan hasn't said no. So, you know what I said? Sometimes the no answer is an answer. And it's been around since 2007. It's looked the same. I've said it before. The R35 has looked essentially the same since 2007. So, I mean, it's high time we change it up. But it has changed mechanically. There has been things added to the powertrain. The drivetrain has been a performance titan. If you look at Texas 2K, there's GTRs there going crazy. The performance numbers you can get on them. I mean, if you're talking about performance car, iconic name, it's lived up to the Skyline name. tenfold. Right now, we got R34s that are legal in the US. So that's kind of the thing that we're talking about now, because everybody wants to spend 200 grand or 160 on these old R34 Nissans, which is a whole nother story about the price of JDM cars, which I might make as a topic. I don't know, but the prices are nuts. So from 2007, about 17 years, we've had the R35, and they haven't shown what the future is, even though Nissan did roll up with some PlayStation 1 graphics with that Hyper Vision Apple Pro. I don't remember what it was called, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna throw a picture up on the screen if you're watching on the video. This was a wild concept. I'll say this. If we're gonna do it, just do it, right? If you're gonna make something this nuts, I know I'm willing to bet that the next version of this R36 will be electrified somehow. It's going to be some hybrid system. I don't think it's going to be completely electronic or electric or hybrid. Not hybrid, but a full electric. I don't think that's the case. I think Nissan would do themselves a disservice if the next R36 they try to say is only electric, because we're just not there yet, and Nissan hasn't even proven themselves when it comes to certain electric cars they have to really feel like I'm going to make an electric supercar, because right now it's a supercar. I know before the R35 and R34 was kind of like this everyday man's I punch above my weight supercar category, but once these things past 200 grand, it's a supercar now. And who knows what the next one's going to look like or what it's going to do. There's zero speculation. There is zero information. All we know is that, according to some, I guess, well-informed magazines, that we're looking at the last year. They're going to make 1,500 models for the last year, 300 of which are going to be Nismos. And I'm sure the prices will kind of creep up, because since the R34 is so vastly different than the R35, whatever the R36 is going to do is going to be probably another generational jump, where it's like it has nothing to do with the model before, because the only time they had some lineage was R32, 3, and 4. After 4, I mean, we were somewhere else. And 36, I imagine we're going somewhere else. So they're working on that. But there's some other things people are working on. And we're going back to EVs. I know somebody's going to be like, oh, bro, more EV. Hey, this is what's going on. What do you want me to say? Okay. Some of the stuff is I like I said. So Rivian was out and about doing their little press conference inside of a school gymnasium. And they rolled out the Rivian R2 SUV. Now, the R2 is like the smaller, younger brother of the R1S SUV. They're boxes on wheels. I like them. I like it better than the Tesla Model Y. I mean, like I said, it's just a box. I'm saying it looks better. It's not like it's gorgeous or something like that. It's just a standard SUV. If you see it, you'll know it. Rivian has a signature headlights in the front. If it was one behind you, you would know it. You probably wouldn't even be able to tell if it was an R2 or an R1S. But for the R2, we have a $45,000 starting SUV. That's a good price. Now, I know what they didn't really want to tell you is that $45,000 is the most bare bones, okay? Single motor, probably cloth seats, not an accoutrement in sight, okay? Dry. So if you really were to option one out the right way, you're probably looking at like 55 or 52,000 to 55. Tax incentives, 7,500. Not a bad deal. That's how much these things are costing. 300-mile range. There's 3 drivetrains: single motor, dual, and tri. The tri motor is a performance one, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, which not surprising in EV land, even though I find it hilarious still that we care about 0 to 60 times in family-oriented vehicles. Okay, who is buying them? What is Bob and Sally doing where they're like, we got to get the kids to school on time? 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, or we're not buying. Outside of the 0 to 60, it looks just like the R1S, like I said. Same interior, which is good because the R1S SUV interior looks really cool. Very nice, subtle. It's nice design. I will always give Rivian that. They are designing their interiors to really set them apart from whatever else has been out there, which is good. It's not as minimalistic as Tesla. It's not as crazy as like all the screens that Mercedes is putting on their EVs, like the EQS. But it feels like it's a SUV. It's a car. It has some utilitarian feel to it. It feels like something that you can live with and be with for a number of years. And those are starting to come out in 2026. So there are some people that don't like the game of EV manufacturers throwing out these cars and doing these reservations for $100. Because if you get 10,000 reservations in with $100, like free funding, and nobody knows when the car is going to come out. They say 2026. Between now and 2026 is about 2 years. There's a lot that can happen between then and there. Hopefully, it gets delivered on time because a lot of people do like it. But I'm not really here about the R2 because there's more. So while I was watching the presentation, they pulled off one of those little Apple tricks that they did back in the day of Steve Jobs saying, hey, but one more thing. Let me pull out something you never seen, like when he slid the MacBook Air out of the, manila envelope or showed off the iPad and stuff like that. They rolled out the R3. Now, here is where I am now on board, okay? I put my bags up. I checked them. I'm on board. The R3, I need it. Go ahead and sign me up. You see what it looks like. This is fire. Go ahead and get me in line whenever this comes out. There's nothing to argue. This is a Volkswagen GTI from the 90s hatchback style, Lancia Delta Integrale, Group B Rally, Cosworth Escort. I just love how this thing looks. It's squared off back. I've said it before, I'm a hatchback fan. I own a hatchback. I drive one now. But now you add the hatchback with the old school boxy slanted rear hatch. Go ahead and put me on the list ASAPly, okay? ASAPly, immediately. I need to be on it. Now, what does it include? The crazy thing is that it has the same drivetrain as the R2, which I thought they were going to reduce down because this is 5 inches shorter than the R2. It's a little hatchback. It has a single motor, dual motor, tri-motor, 300-mile range, same performance package, but this is where I was like, I'm sold. They rolled out the R3X. You see it up there? Don't tell me this don't look dope. And if you don't like it because you don't like EVs, then I really can't help you on that end of it because there are some people that do not like the ideologies and the systems of electric vehicles. That goes down to a whole different path. Again, another subject I'll talk about on those second episodes I do during the week. But this has wide fenders, bigger tires, lifted stands. This looks like a little rally car. The interior, this yellowish hue with leather or cloth or whatever the material is with the red accents. I mean, this looks amazing. And they said that with the tri-motor that this has, they're talking about an 800-horse little hatchback like this. Come on now. Now, I know it's not going to be cheap. They said that the base price of the R3 should be somewhere around $42,000 if the R2 is $45,000. Given the fact that the Hyundai Ioniq 5N announced their price tag, which is $67,000, which, I like the Ioniq 5N for an electric hatchback with 641 horsepower, and I shouldn't be asking for a price to be lower, but there's no way on the Lord's earth that I'm going to pay near $70,000 for Hyundai's first electric hatchback. I'm sorry. I'm being honest here. Those numbers, they don't apply. Now, I'm not asking for it to be $40,000. I'm just saying for me, even though I like how that thing looks and performs, there's no way I'm coming there talking about $70,000. I mean, I think you could probably apply the tax incentive, which would bring you down to 60 plus tax, but nah, sorry. Try again. But still a very good car. So the R3X is probably going to be around the same thing, though I like the Rivian one better. So if we were trying to say we're going to spend $60,000 for some crazy hot, performance hatchback that was all electric, I would do it on the R3X. When is it coming out? Absolutely no idea. If the R2 is 2026, I mean, unfortunately, 2028, 2027. It rides on a similar chassis as the R2, so maybe they'll squeeze it in 2027. Don't hold your breath, honestly, because who knows what's going to happen. And speaking about not holding your breath on EVs, another thing happened in the EV world that comes in play with what I said a couple podcasts ago. I said, do not buy an EV if you are thinking it will not depreciate in fantastic fashion. Absolutely nuts depreciation. And again, not because the market said we don't want them, even though they kind of are saying we don't want them, but because of the manufacturer. So Chevy a couple months back put a stop sale on their Blazer EV because they couldn't figure out a software issue that was affecting their infotainment system and their vehicle systems, where people were test driving them where the whole thing would just go black and shut off and you couldn't see or do anything. So a great starting point for the reliability of what you're trying to build. Let me just say that now. I mean, that's a real good way to convince me that you guys got it together. No, okay, not. But they stopped it, right? So if you were trying to do a sale, they said, no, we're not doing it right now. They fixed it though. So it is fixed. The sales have started again, but then they put them on sale. So before the stop sale, the cheapest Blazer EV was $56,000, which is still crazy. I mean, look at these numbers I'm telling you, like 15 years ago, 56 grand, 50. I mean, this was like luxury. I mean, you really had to go out of your way to really spend this money. Now, Chevy Blazers are $56,000. Crazy times. But anyways, it went from 56 grand to $50,000. Actually, $56,715 down to $50,195. That's near 7 grand chopped off, right? Add in the incentive from the government, $7,500, I believe it is. We're talking about $42,695. We went from 56.7 grand to 42.6. I mean, if this isn't a sign that they have no idea what they're doing with this EV market, from pricing to technologies they're trying to put inside to marketing it, I mean, that's not a good thing. Right? If you were actually buying one now, like a Model Y or a Tesla, and Elon chopped the price off by 10 grand, you're looking around like, I just lost 10 grand in value. Not that it wasn't going to lose that 10 grand in value anyways. It would have been more of a gradual slope, not a cliff or a waterfall. So Chevy's doing the same thing, but it got even crazier. It goes even further up. The highest trim they have, the RS one, normally was around $60,000. It went down to $54,000. Then you add in the tax incentive, it's $48,000. $62,000 down to $48,000. Again, massive amounts of money taken off of a car that's not even in the market. There's only a few out there. I don't even know if owners really got the Blazer, but if you did have it, you probably had the software issue, probably took it back. But here's the one thing that Chevy is at least doing. Anybody that previously had a Blazer EV or ordered it or paid for it, they are giving them a reimbursement of that price difference. Unlike Elon, when he chopped off the price, he was like, guys, I'm sorry, figure it out. Listen, you said you wanted the car, I gave it to you. I just put it on sale the night after. Now, the EV market is like a double-edged sword. It slices one way where if you're buying it and hoping that your money is holding some type of value or space, you're wrong. It's getting chopped somehow, some way. We've seen it. There has been too many examples. If you don't want to believe me, Ford did it with the Mustang Mach-E. Tesla's doing it. Chevy's doing it with the Blazer. It's going to happen, okay? The numbers are coming down. If Rivian is making an RT, I keep saying RT. If Rivian is making an R2, and the base price is $45,000. Chevy probably doesn't have much of a market to try to say, I'm going to give you a Blazer, unless you got the true diehard Chevy fans at 50 grand. They know they're going to have to start bringing the price down because nobody knows where the market for the EV pricing should be. It's all over the place. You can't base it off Tesla because they have a rabid fan base that are going to pay whatever it is that he's making. And Rivian also has a fan base too. Chevy is going to have to figure out their demographic, their current customers, and what it is that they're willing to pay for an electric vehicle. But clearly they have no idea because these prices are dropping consistently. So the other way the double-edged sword cuts is that if you are going to buy an EV, if you are going to buy an electric car, these are some of the most smoking deals ever. This is like you shopping at a store and you're getting the we're going out of business prices, but they're open tomorrow. That's what's going on. We got I'm going out of business numbers, but I'll be here tomorrow. Okay. So if you are going to buy an EV, if you're looking at EVs, this is probably the best time that you could ever buy one because the waters are murky. They're shaky. The manufacturers really don't know what it is that they want to do and what they want to buy. How many people are going to buy it? How many they're going to sell? It's a toss up. Like I said, tread lightly. Okay, do your research. If you are looking at these, you better call ahead and say, hey, are y'all actually making sales? Because if I hear about a reimbursement or this thing goes on sale, every manufacturer is not going to give you your money back. Tesla didn't for their people that they dropped the price. Folks are trying to sue him. So Chevy, at least they made well by saying we're going to reimburse those people. But that means that they're losing money on each one of these SUVs that they do sell. We'll see how it plays out. Now, before I wrap this up, GR Corolla updates, there are none. Hey, sorry. It's not like I got parts every day. Actually, I do have a mid-pipe coming from 2J Racing from a gentleman that had one that he didn't want it to give me a most wild deal, and I just had to take it. And I'm going to do a video on that, even though I did a video on the 2J Racing mid-pipe when my friend Chris put on his car. But me and him both want to do something more for 2J Racing because, one, I love the exhaust and I love their products. So I'm trying to hopefully partner with them to get their main exhaust to put on with the mid pipe to compare it to somebody that we know that has an AWE and an AFE exhaust and combine them all together. So who knows? I might chop up this reel and send it to 2J Racing and say, hey guys, it's me again, the gentleman that got the only video on all of YouTube for a 2J Racing mid pipe and exhaust. And I argue with many people, it is still one of the best sounding exhausts out there. The AWE one does sound good, though many people now are saying it's too loud. I have heard the 2J one. I still like how it looks the best. My friend Chris has had it on his car for near 15,000 miles. This thing sounds fantastic. The proper tonality. I mean, I can go on and on, but listen, if you don't know, check out the video I did back in the couple months ago, last year, when I shot the video for the 2J Racing exhaust. We got Radwood coming up. That's a car show that I go to every year, 80s, 90s cars only. Every time I go to that show, I just shed an internal tear of wanting an 80s, 90s car. And I had an old Volkswagen MK2 that I sold before I went to Hawaii and moved there for a number of years. And I should have kept it. I could have at least gave it to like a mother-in-law or somebody, just have it in their driveway, but I didn't. And now all those cars, like I said, the Japanese, the JDM cars, the Euro cars, 80s, 90s cars, all of them are asking price tags that are just Dr. Evil. No, not doing it. Y'all doing dos muchos. Too much. And that's it. I'll be back. I got another episode coming. Like I said, I got some topics I want to talk about and, discuss some things about the, EV market, interior design, old 80s, 90s cars, especially the Japanese market. Are they worth it? Are they not? I mean, there's a whole difference of opinion with there. Some people are like, you got it, you love it, you don't. I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm done here. And I want you guys to do as you wish and to do as you may. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of CarQuicks. It's Cameron Biggs, your host, and I'll be back for another one. Peace.